What's up, guys? Yugi Bros here today to give you a 5-card list of cards I would love to see come in Scars of Battle. All of these cards, I've kind of gone over them. They're not overpowered. They're kind of like generic versions of stuff that could be more broken, but I kind of wanted to make it, speed duel relevant, but not too insane. But I also don't want it to be like too terrible and you'd use it for maybe like this format and then never use it again. So I wanted them to be like reoccurring options that could all be relevant moving forward in the game of Speed. So without further ado, here's my first option, and that is Draining Shield. This is a normal trap card that says when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you could target the attacking monster, negate the attack, and if you do, gain life points equal to that target's attack. There's a few reasons I like this. One, it negates an attack. A lot of things in this game kind of like shift things to defense mode, right? Nothing's really negating attacks, but this would be one of the first to negate the attack outright. And in an added bonus, you gain life points equal to the monster's attack. We need something that gains life points in this game that isn't golden apples. But with this, you negate the attack and gain the life. So if you're in a dire situation and Blue Eyes is swinging in for game and they don't have Lord of D, and they swing, and you negate the attack and gain 3,000, that could be insane. Then you're playing regular Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is pretty crazy. But the downside of this card, of course, is that it targets. So if they do put the Lord of D on the field, your Blue Eyes is not going to be stopped by this, and you can freely attack continually. But the thing with this that I like is that there's nothing that gains life in this game currently, and I feel like we need something that does, and I feel like this is like a nice balance between a good card that gains life and also a good card that negates an attack. And I feel with Night Beam on the horizon, we have more and more ways to destroy spell and trap cards than ever before, and you can't chain this to Night Beam, so it's not insane like that. So I think this would be a perfect balance, but also be very powerful in the game in the fact that you just won't lose outright. Like, you could side this against Blue Eyes and be perfectly fine if you can make sure the Lord of D never sees the light of day using RFI or something like that. But in another case, like against Gravekeepers, if they put the Oracle out and the Oracle's just real big, and you need to stop the attack and gain life points, like Oracle gains you half your life back, which is pretty crazy. So I don't think this is out of the realm of possibility. This is something that like Battle Pack tournaments for years would always throw into its thing because it's just a generically good negate attack card. And speaking of Battle Packs, I feel like you could take a lot of ideas from the Battle Pack saga that they had way back when and kind of implement them into Speed because it's a slower format where you play cards like this that, are good. They're not insane. So that's why I like Draining Shield. Second one on this list, I have Berserk Scales. It's a quick play spell. It says target when face-up monster you control, except a monster that is attacking directly. It gains 1,000 attack. Also, it cannot attack your opponent directly for the rest of the turn. During the end phase of this turn, it loses 2,000 attack. So I originally wanted Rush Recklessly on this list, but I think Rush Recklessly as of right now is too good because a quick play that just gives you 700 attack, yeah, so what, it's until the end of the turn. The thing is, you can just go for a game. You can put something like a Manju up to 2,100 and swing directly for half the damage and life points. That just seems a little too much right now, whereas this card, 1,000 is higher than 700 for sure, but you can't put it on something that's attacking directly, or if you do, it just can't attack directly for the rest of the turn. So it kind of counterbalances itself where you're not going to have this overly powerful monster just bunch in for damage. It has to swing over something, and but this is good, and I'm going to use Blue Eyes for an example here again, to get rid of something like a Blue Eyes. Like, if you have a monster, it's easy to get something in a lot of decks that's like 2021, something like that. It's really hard to get something up to 3,000, but with this, you can get your monster over the Blue Eyes and get it out of the way for good, without using some fancy spell or traps to try to bait or destroy this insane dragon. You can just make your monster bigger and get over it. So I really like this card. I think this card also would just be, it would be like a format specific card. Again, you may not main it, but damn does it get over things. Also, this card's other downside is that the monster loses 2,000 attack at the end of the turn. So if you use this on your turn, you're putting whatever monster that you just used to God Slaughter something even bigger than it, at a huge risk of losing 2,000 attack at the end phase. So it essentially loses 1,000 from whatever its base was, because its base then goes up by 1,000, then comes back down and goes down another 1,000. But that's detrimental again with almost any card. So where this card really shines is when your opponent attacks you and you activate it, charging one of your monsters up to 1,000. Then, even though it goes down to 2 at the end of the turn, it goes to your turn, so you could just simply, at worst case scenario, just put it in defense mode and not have to worry about it. It kind of charges something up real strong for it to get really weak at the end phase. It's like steroids. They're really good in the beginning, but in the long run, not so much. Third on this list is Gravel Storm. I wanted to put Double Cyclone on this list, but I actually think Double Cyclone would be too good in this game. With something like Relinquish, targeting one of your monsters that's equipped with Relinquish, and then one under your opponent's back row seems really dumb, especially after the Relinquish gets the attack off and doesn't even need the thing, and then you can re-equip the following turn. We have enough with Ready for Intercepting already. We don't need more things to help Relinquish out. And in the same sense, it's a quick play spell, so you can use it on your turn as well as your opponent's. Whereas Gravel Storm is like the sister card to this. It's a trap version, but instead of destroying a card on each side, it returns both to the hand. So even if you did play something like this and Relinquish, A, you have to set it for a turn, and B, whatever you bounce back, assuming you absorbed an opponent's monster, would go to their hand, so they essentially get their card back for future uses. So I don't think this card's overpowered. I think it's actually really good, but it's a really good format-specific card. It can see a lot of play. It also may not see a lot of play, but it's a good way to power creep the system how they've kind of done it so far, where in the first set, you have to pay 500 life points to activate a Twister that only pops a face-up spell or trap. In the second set, we have Dust Tornado, which can destroy any spell or trap, but it's a trap card, so you have to set it for one turn. In the third set, we have Night Beam, which destroys any set spell or trap card, and your opponent can't directly respond to it, but it only can destroy set spell or traps. So they're kind of working their way up this ladder here, where they're avoiding, to use MST or Twin Twister or something insane like that. And I think Gravel Storm continues to climb that ladder without being too ridiculous. So that's why I would give it the number 3 slot on this list. Number 4, Battle and Box Reveal. Now, I don't know how Konami's going to do it with outside archetypes that deal with summoning mechanics that they're not planning on using in Speed Duels. As far as I know, they don't have any intention to go past Fusion for this. But if this does become what Duel Links is, they'll eventually get there. But either way, do they reveal a card that has to do with an archetype that would be used for Xyz summons in the future? I'm not really sure. This has nothing to do with Xyz summons, and I think this is a fair quote-unquote hand trap, but we'll see what they're going there. But either way, this is a level 4 fire-type monster, warrior, effect, 0 attack, and 18 defense. Says when you take battle damage, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, gain life points equal to the difference you took. So what I like about this card is that it chump blocks, but you also recover the damage. Similar to Golden Apples, except Golden Apples is a trap, this is a hand trap that instead of summoning a token with equal attack to the damage you took, you can drop it regardless if you have monsters or not. Golden Apples specifically says you can't control a monster to use it, whereas Battle and Box Reveal can be any battle damage. If they just slightly got over one of your monsters, and we're going to use Blue Eyes yet again. Let's say you had a boss monster in the field, but Blue Eyes is just stronger because he's 3,000, and he gets over your guy for a little bit. You drop this on the field, you gain that little bit back. But what's great is that while it doesn't sound insane on paper, he then acts as another defense for you. So you gain your life back and get a defensive thing. You just put it in defense at 18. Sure, it might just die instantly, but it saved you from an attack, and you gain the life points, so you essentially lost nothing off the other battle outside of your monster. Again, I don't know where Konami stands on giving an archetype card that deals with a summoning mechanic that isn't in speed to this, but I definitely think if they're on the plan of doing that, they need to do that with a lot of cards in specific archetypes. Something like Pankratops is obviously too strong, but you get what I'm saying. At number 5, I have an interesting normal trap called Skill Successor. This says target a face-up monster you control. It gains 400 attack until the end of the turn. During your turn, except the turn this was sent to the graveyard, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one face-up monster you control. That target gains 800 attack until the end of the turn. So, I don't know if dual effects, one being on field, one being in grave, is too good, like a grave effect, yet in this game. But if you had told me, the plan was to put Sphere Karibo in the first pack of this game, I would have said, hell no, that's going to be way too broken that early, especially because Relinquish was in the decks. And yet we got it. And I don't think this is anywhere close to Sphere Karibo's level, but I do think this has its tactic that's just really, really good in a lot of specific decks for a lot of specific situations. Gaining 400 attack isn't huge when you activate this, but gaining 800 attack is. And what's cool is that if your opponent goes and pops this, and whatever you target, you just flip it to target, or you just miss it and it just ends up being dead on the field, doesn't mean this card is dead ever. It means after the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can use it as essentially a graveyard trap card and give something 800 attack. What I love about that is that your opponent tends to forget about effects like this that sit in the graveyard for a little bit. And cards get stacked on top of it. Sooner or later, no one remembers it's there. You can use that to your advantage. And I love cards like this because I don't think it's insane. I don't think it's a breakthrough skill. But I do think 800 attack points can get you where you need to go, especially if your opponent's not expecting it. Like if you get into a situation where you have one monster and he's, let's say 700 to make it really interesting, attack points lower than your opponent's monster, you have no cards in your hand and no set cards on the field, your opponent just thinks they've got this game in the bag. And then they go to attack, and you activate Skill Successor from the graveyard, putting your monster up by 100 over theirs, and destroying it, giving you a huge advantage, and then letting you go into your turn with whatever you draw plus the monster that survived the battle. That seems really good. So I would love to see something like that in the game. I don't think this is overpowered at all. I think this is actually really skillful, hence the name. But I would love to see Skill Successor in this game, whether it be this set or the next set. I think this is like the coolest option, probably next to Berserk Scales out of these 5 that I've mentioned. But Draining Shield, please give us gain life point card. Like, give us this. I love this. This card's great. This card's great. But guys, if I'm wrong and you think one of these is too powerful or multiple of these is too powerful for Speed Duels, please don't hesitate to leave a comment down below telling me why and explaining your reasoning behind so, because at the end of the day, this is a conversation that I love to have with you guys. I love the idea of throwing more generic cards into this and coming up with essentially what would come in the future sets before we even know. It's fun to speculate. It's even more fun to see what could work in this game, even if Konami doesn't add it. So, as always though, I am Yugi Bros. Comment, like, and subscribe as always, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.